The story begins with a question that was whispered behind locked laboratory doors, the kind spoken only by those who feared what the answer might unleash. What kind of knowledge forces the most powerful government of the 20th century to seize a man's life work within hours of his death? And why did one burned trunk, half destroyed, half surviving, unsettle entire scientific departments for decades afterward? Some archivists, when asked about the recovered materials, refused to comment. A few, after retirement, hinted at something far more dangerous than weapons or patents. And one, in a private interview never released to the public, muttered a sentence that would later become the center of countless classified inquiries. Those papers, they didn't describe inventions. They described consequences. Welcome to Noetera, Hidden Lives, where the forbidden corners of history are brought into the light. What follows is a reconstruction built from confiscated archives, contradictory testimonies, scorched notebooks, declassified fragments, and records that were never meant to be read together. Stay till the end and subscribe if you seek the truths history tried to bury. The investigation begins with something strangely simple. A trunk, not even a large one. Wooden, metal reinforced, half charred. Its contents damaged by a fire that has never been officially explained. Some claim the fire occurred days before Tesla died. Others argue it was set deliberately afterward. The official documents avoid any reference to flames at all. Yet the trunk existed, and inside it, 3 categories of evidence survived. Fragments, drafts, warnings. It is these scattered remnants, partially burned pages, warped metal sheets etched with designs, notes overwritten by water and soot that form the foundation of this reconstruction. And each piece challenges everything previously believed about Tesla's final years. The preserved fragments reveal an unusual shift in his research focus. Instead of strictly electrical engineering, many pages describe patterns, repeating numeric sequences, resonance cycles mapped to human behavior, oscillation charts tied not to machines, but to biological responses. Few historians address this category publicly, yet the burned trunk contains more material on bioresonance studies than on any of Tesla's well-known inventions. Some pages bear warnings written in an unfamiliar shorthand, almost looking like code. Unstable when indexed with frontal cortex pattern. Do not expose to collective environments. Incomplete understanding of psychological collapse threshold. Field interference affects involuntary response loops. None of these phrases appear in any of Tesla's published papers. None match known scientific terminology of the era, and all are written in a tone that suggests not confidence, but restraint. What exactly had he discovered? Theories diverge violently. One group of researchers claims the trunk documents a device capable of projecting frequencies that disrupt biological equilibrium, something akin to an early resonant destabilizer. A few go further, suggesting it might influence decision-making or perception. They cite Tesla's own public statements about the brain functioning through electrical impulses and programmable responses. Another group insists these interpretations are extreme exaggerations. According to them, Tesla was exploring harmless bioelectrical patterns and never intended to create any form of psychological influence. They argue the burned notes were drafts, not final theories. But then comes a contradiction too large to ignore. A classified memorandum dated January 9th, 1943, 2 days after Tesla's death, mentions a device of potential strategic significance affecting neural coherence fields. The memorandum remains partially redacted, yet the phrase is visible enough to raise questions. What kind of machine would make military? Officials describe neural coherence as a strategic asset. Deeper into the trunk, Another category of documents emerges. Schematic plates etched into thin copper sheets. They are warped from heat but readable. The lines form complex spirals, converging at nodes labeled F1, F2, and F3, designations never seen in Tesla's other diagrams. The shapes resemble neither circuits nor generators. Instead, they look like interference wave patterns, mapped in layers. One assistant who examined the plates before they were relocated to a classified archive stated that they reminded him of weaponized resonance studies. However, this statement was denied by every agency ever questioned about it. Surprisingly, another scholar, one specializing in early electrophysiology, claimed the opposite, that the plates looked more like diagnostic tools, possibly intended for enhancing cognitive efficiency or mental clarity. According to this interpretation, Tesla might have been developing a kind of mind amplification engine. The two explanations contradict each other entirely, and yet both authors insist the plates prove their respective claims. But the trunk contains something even more unsettling. A partially burned notebook with a series of entries written in a steady, controlled script. They reference experiments unnamed in any public archive. Each entry lists oscillation frequency, environmental conditions, observed effects, emotional responses, cognitive distortions. The wording is clinical, but the implications are not. One surviving entry reads, "Subject perceives auditory content unrelated to actual environment. Distortion increases when resonance exceeds threshold." Another, "Emotional agitation observed at 7 to 12 Hz modulation. Effects reversible when exposure terminated." And the most controversial, "Prolonged exposure creates susceptibility to imposed vibrational patterns, altering interpretive awareness." Scholars debate fiercely whether Tesla ever had subjects to test such ideas. No record of volunteers exists. No official testing logs survive. Some claim the subjects were hypothetical models. Others argue Tesla conducted self-experiments only. A few radical historians suggest the possibility of unsolicited field tests, but no evidence supports this claim. The truth remains obscured by the damaged pages, yet the trunk holds an even more baffling component. Letters, not from Tesla, but addressed to him, from individuals whose names appear nowhere else in his correspondence. The letters reference clandestine meetings, exchange documents, and discussions about applications not suited for public demonstration. One letter laments the fear that the research could invite scrutiny. No institution would survive, while another warns that the boundary between exploration and interference is thinner than anticipated. A recurring phrase appears across multiple letters: the threshold problem. Some historians believe this refers to the threshold of electrical conductivity or mechanical resonance. Others propose it describes a moral threshold, the Yamagiyo line separating science from exploitation. But a few investigators argue that threshold might indicate something else, the limit beyond which the effects of Tesla's experiments become unpredictable, possibly dangerous. Inside the trunk, a single piece of folded parchment bears only one line. It is not the device that is dangerous, but its coherence with the human field. What human field? What coherence? What device? The words are too vague for certainty, yet too deliberate to ignore. Past reconstruction paints the image of a man working alone in dimly lit rooms, surrounded by stacks of unfiled notes and instruments never shown publicly. Tesla's New York hotel staff recalled strange vibrations from his floor that felt like a heartbeat under the building. Guests reported flickering lights when he worked, though the hotel wiring was not connected to his equipment. Several testimonies describe muffled humming and oscillating tones late at night. One guest insisted the sound induced an odd clarity of thought, while another described it as disorienting. These accounts remain unverified, yet they align disturbingly with the notebook entries on cognitive effects. One investigator later asked a question that remains unanswered. If these were accidental side effects, what were the intended effects? Then comes the political dimension. Within hours of Tesla's death, government agents entered his room. The official explanation states that his belongings were secured to protect wartime research. However, a declassified letter written decades later contradicts this. It states, certain materials retrieved posed ideological risks beyond their technological content. Ideological risks, not mechanical, not military. Ideological. What kind of idea is so dangerous it must be seized before anyone else sees it? Some researchers propose that Tesla's final theories challenge the foundational assumptions about human autonomy, cognition, or perception. Others suggest they revealed mechanisms through which behavior or thought might be influenced technologically. A few claim the documents hinted at energy, principles capable of undermining existing political powers, concepts incompatible with geopolitics of the era. Another theory proposes that Tesla discovered resonant frequencies capable of disrupting machinery or communication systems, effectively making infrastructure vulnerable. Such a breakthrough would destabilize entire national defense strategies. But the most controversial interpretation, the one historians avoid, argues that Tesla was developing technology that blurred the line between physics and biology. This theory suggests that the trunk contained early prototypes of devices capable of altering human perception through external oscillation fields. Some call this harmless or theoretical. Others call it ethically catastrophic. The biggest contradiction lies in the fact that some trunk documents emphasize restraint and caution, while others describe optimization and scaling. One page warns against exceeding specific frequencies for any duration, while another page, seemingly from the same period, calculates the amplification ratios required to broadcast resonance across large distances. Why would someone issue dire warnings while simultaneously planning large-scale deployment? A deeper look into the letters reveals further contradictions. One correspondent writes, "The work must be safeguarded, not weaponized." Another, likely from a government liaison, states the opposite. Any principle with strategic potential must be secured before others develop similar methods. Opposing forces pulled at Tesla's research from all directions. Some begged for discretion, others demanded exploitation. The burned trunk seems to be the only surviving battlefield of these clashing agendas. The past reconstruction suggests an unsettling conclusion. Tesla was pressured, perhaps even manipulated, into developing inventions he considered morally dubious. At the same time, he may have been protecting certain insights from misuse by withholding critical steps. This leads to one of the most disturbing fragments in the trunk. A half-burned page with the sentence, "Knowledge absolves no one. Application reveals intent." Below it, a diagram shows overlapping circles labeled field, mind, and impulse. Note beside it warns of feedback loops in collective environments. Some interpret this as early research into group psychology under electromagnetic influence. Others argue it merely maps interactions between energy fields and sensory interpretation. But the page is burned too precisely. Along the margin, where the final explanatory paragraph should be, whether this was accident or intention remains unknown. Eyewitness accounts from those who briefly examined the trunk before its confiscation describe a peculiar document, a sealed envelope labeled "for later consideration." Inside, they claim, was a manuscript discussing resonant identity deviation. confiscated, phrase so enigmatic that interpretations vary wildly. Some think it refers to mechanical instability. Others believe it hints at cognitive destabilization. A few consider it philosophical metaphor. None of these interpretations can be confirmed. The envelope is currently missing. Another troubling fragment includes a list of cities, each paired with numbers resembling radio frequencies. Scholars debate the purpose of this list. Some believe it represents Tesla's work on wireless energy transmission. Others suspect it documents resonant responses recorded during experiments. A minority propose a darker interpretation, that the list indicates optimal frequencies for influencing densely populated areas. The fragment ends abruptly with the question, what happens when the field extends beyond voluntary subjects? Past reconstruction suggests Tesla grappled with profound ethical dilemmas. His notes repeatedly mention the obligation of the inventor and the danger of coercive applications. He references the potential for cognitive interference, yet also explores enhanced clarity through guided resonance. The duality is unmistakable. Empowerment versus manipulation, liberation versus control, discovery versus exploitation. Tesla's final years remain a battlefield of contradictory impulses. Some pages argue for a world empowered by limitless clean energy and expanded human potential. Others warn of catastrophic consequences if certain principles fall into the wrong hands. The burned trunk reveals both visions and no resolution. The reconstructed narrative of the past pushes toward a turning point. The night of the fire, witnesses recall smoke coming from Tesla's room. Though Tesla himself reported no fire, hotel staff insisted that the damaged trunk was removed before it could cause further destruction. Yet government records claim the trunk was intact upon seizure. Contradictory accounts emerge again, weaving a web of uncertainty so dense that historians debate whether a fire happened at all. If there was a fire, was it an accident or an attempt to destroy evidence? If there was no fire, why was the trunk half burned? What selective damage pattern destroys certain pages but leaves schematics intact? The mysteries multiply. Present-day investigators continue to debate the authenticity and implications of the surviving fragments. Some argue the trunk demonstrates Tesla's brilliance and foresight, exploring fields modern science is only beginning to understand. Others see it as evidence of experiments that crossed ethical boundaries. A few view it as proof of the government's fear, not of Tesla's inventions, but of what those inventions could reveal about the human mind. The surviving material forces several forbidden questions. If resonance can alter perception, who decides how it is used? If oscillation can affect emotion, where is the line between influence and manipulation? If coherence fields can override individual interpretation, what becomes of free will? If technology can replicate psychological effects, who holds the power to define reality? And above all, what if these discoveries were not abandoned, but quietly continued? Toward the end of the trunk's contents lies one final, fragile page, its edges burned, its ink faded but still legible. It contains no diagrams, no calculations, no warnings, only a single sentence. The greatest danger is not the machine, but the belief that no one will ever misuse it. Whether this is a confession, a caution, or a prophecy remains unknown. The present-day investigation ends where it began, at the convergence of incomplete truths, suppressed knowledge, classified archives, and the eerie silence surrounding the trunk's final location. Some believe the materials are held in private vaults, studied by agencies that deny their existence. Others suspect they were destroyed. A few claim fragments reappear occasionally on the black market, though none have been verified. What remains undeniable is this: the burned trunk contains ideas capable of reshaping scientific, political and philosophical foundations, ideas that challenge assumptions about autonomy, cognition, energy, and influence, ideas that unsettle institutions invested in stability, ideas that provoke forbidden curiosity, precisely because they blur the line between enlightenment and control. Whether these fragments represent humanity's next great leap or its most dangerous temptation cannot be determined. From the surviving evidence, the contradictions are too numerous, the missing pages too critical, the interpretations too divided. The past refuses to offer clarity, and perhaps it is this ambiguity, the unresolved tension between possibility and peril, that preserves the power of the trunk's contents. What they found in Nikola Tesla's burned trunk changed everything for those who read its pages. For the rest of the world, it leaves only questions. Are these the final warnings of a genius ahead of his time? The unfiltered drafts of experiments never meant to proceed? Or the suppressed blueprints of a future someone feared would arrive too soon? Whether these clues form a forgotten truth or merely echoes left by imagination is yours to judge. If you seek more forbidden histories and deeply buried secrets, subscribe to Noetera, Hidden Lives, and continue this journey into the stories the world was never meant to hear.